Hey everyone, welcome back to Unit 2 of Public Finance. So today we will be covering the entire Unit 2 of CA Foundation Business Economics in this video. So here we start. Unit 2, Market Failure or Government Intervention to Correct Market Failure. So here are the learning outcomes. After studying this unit, you will be able to define the concept of market failure, describe the different sources of market failure, and explain various government interventions for correcting market failure. Here is introduction. The market is an environment where buyers and sellers transact or exchange goods and services. Economists presume that people will make choices in their own self-interest. They will choose those things that provide the greatest personal benefit, खुद के फायदे के लिए, and keep themselves away from those that are not valuable and worth seeking. In other words, individuals will behave rationally. So, what a rational person will do. The general belief is that since rational individuals act to maximize self interest, a perfect working market system is by default efficient and will effectively allocate scarce economic resource, मतलब जो कम तरता है रिसोर्स में, जो कम लिमिटेड क्वांटिटी में जो रिसोर्स है उसको स्केयर रिसोर्स बोलते हैं, इन द बेस्ट पॉसिबल मैनर. In other words, in a well functioning market, prices provide the accurate signals to producers and consumers, and the right quantity of whatever consumers choose to consume will be produced and supplied at the right price. However, this is not always true. Under circumstances, certain market failure occurs, that is, the market fails to allocate resource efficiently, and therefore market outcomes becomes inefficient. मतलब कुछ सिचुएशंस में रिसोर्स प्रॉपर एलोकेट नहीं होता है, इसीलिए मार्केट इनएफिशिएंटली परफॉर्म करता है. Then we have the concept of market failure. The inefficient allocation of resource in an economy is described as market failure. The term market failure does not mean that market is not working at all. ध्यान में रखो. It only means that the market does not function in the way that it should. Market failure is a situation in which the free market leads to misallocation, inappropriate allocations of society's scarce resources, in a sense that there is either overproduction, ज़्यादा प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है, और अंडर प्रोडक्शन या कम प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है of particular goods and services, leading to a less than optimal outcome. There are two types of market failures, namely, first, complete market failure. This is a case of missing market and occurs when the market does not supply products at all, despite the fact that such products and services are wanted by people. Example, pure public goods जो पब्लिक के वेलफेयर के लिए चाहिए. Second, partial market failure. It occurs when the market does actually function, but it produces either the wrong quantity of a product or at a wrong price. एक तो क्वांटिटी गलत गलत प्रोड्यूस हुआ है या फिर प्राइसिंग ही गलत है. दिस रिजल्ट इन लॉस ऑफ इकोनॉमिक वेलफेयर. Why do markets fail? क्यों? The pertinent question here is, why do markets fail, or why do markets fail to produce the ideal outcome that economic theory predicts? Perfectly competitive market will generate outcomes in which the economy's resources are allocated to the highest valued user, and no one person can be made better off without making at least another person worse off. मतलब किसी का फायदा होगा तो ही किसी का नुकसान होगा, ये लाइन का मतलब. Though perfectly competitive markets work efficiently in the real world, conditions necessarily for efficient outcome, namely perfect competition, is not practical. We know that conditions such as a large number of small firms, perfect knowledge, homogeneous product, etc., are not generally present in most markets. We shall first try to understand why market fail and then proceed to identify the role of government in dealing with such failure. So government ने क्या करना चाहिए? So there are four major reasons for market failures. They are market power, externalities, public goods and incomplete information. We shall discuss each of above in details. आगे discuss करेंगे. First comes market power. So market power or monopoly power is the ability of a firm to profitably raise the market price of a good or service over its marginal cost. Firms that have market power are price makers. For example, Geo, a live example. Geo is price maker and therefore can charge a price that gives them a positive economic profit. Excessive market powers causes the single producer or a small number of producers to restrict output. Example, produce and sell less output than it would be produced in a competitive environment. Less produce करते हैं and charge price higher than what it would prevail under perfect competition. These profits are not achieved due to operational inefficiency but due to market power and dominance. Thus, market failure market fails to produce the right quantity of goods and service at the right price. First हो गया market power. Second comes externalities. We begin by describing externalities and then proceed to discuss how they create market inefficiencies. So, as we are aware, anything that one individual does may have at the margin of some effect on another. For example, if individuals decide to switch from consumption of ordinary vegetables to consumption of organic vegetables, they would they would other things equal increase the price of organic vegetable and potentially reduce the welfare of existing consumer of ऑर्गेनिक वेजिटेबल्स मतलब सेक्टर शिफ्ट हुआ या प्रोडक्ट शिफ्ट हुआ तो दूसरे एग्जिस्टिंग कंज्यूमर्स पे भी इम्पैक्ट आएगा. However, we should note that all these operate through price mechanism, that is through change in price. ये सब price impact price के changes में incorporate होता है. So the price system works efficiently because market prices convey information to both producers and consumers. However, when a consumption or production activity has an indirect effect, either positive or negative, on consumption or production activities of others and such effects are not reflected in directly in market prices, we call it as externalities. वापस. However, when the consumption or production activity has an indirect effect, either positive और नेगेटिव मतलब कंजम्पशन का कुछ इफेक्ट या फिर प्रोडक्शन का इफेक्ट पॉजिटिव और नेगेटिव ऑन कंजम्पशन और प्रोडक्शन एक्टिविटीज ऑफ अदर्स मतलब दूसरों के एंड सच इफेक्ट आर नॉट डायरेक्टली रिफ्लेक्टेड इन मार्केट प्राइसेस और जिसका इफेक्ट मार्केट प्राइस पे नहीं हो रहा है जिसका असर मार्केट प्राइस पे नहीं हो रहा है तो उसको हम कहेंगे एक्सटर्नलिटीज. एक्सटर्नलिटीज आर कॉस्ट नेगेटिव एक्सटर्नलिटीज और बेनिफिट्स पॉजिटिव मतलब दो साइड हो सकता है इधर नेगेटिव साइड होता है पॉजिटिव विच आर नॉट रिफ्लेक्टेड इन फ्री मार्केट प्राइस. They are called externalities because they are external to the market. Externalities are also referred to as spillover effect, neighborhood effects, third party effect or side effects as the originator of the externality imposes cost or benefit on others who are not responsible for initiating the effect. Since it occurs outside the price mechanism, it is not been compensated for, or in other words, it is uninternalized or the cost benefit of it is not borne or paid by the parties. Externalities can be positive or negative. Negative externalities occurs when the action of one party imposes cost, दूसरों पे cost बढ़ जाता है on another party. Positive externalities occurs when the action of one party confers benefit on another party. Then we have production externalities. So negative production externalities initiated in production which imposes an external cost on others may be received by another in consumption or in production. इसका एग्जाम्पल लिखते हैं. A negative production externalities is received in consumption when a factory which produces aluminum discharges untreated wastewater into a nearby river and pollutes the water, causing health hazards for people who use the water for drinking and bathing. वापस a negative production externalities is received in consumption when a factory कोई फैक्ट्री अगर कुछ एल्यूमिनियम का प्रोड्यूस कर रही है और जो भी वेस्ट वाटर है वो रिवर में डाल रही है और वो सेम वाटर नॉर्मल जो पीपल है वो ड्रिंकिंग वाटर बोल के यूज़ कर रहे हैं, तो ये है नेगेटिव एक्सटर्नलिटीज़ जो प्रोडक्शन से हो रही है. A negative production externalities is received in production when pollution of river affects fish output and there will be less catch for fishermen due to loss of fish resource. वो पूरा मरीन लाइफ पे भी इम्पैक्ट आता है उसका. The firm, however, has no incentive to account for this external cost. फर्म को कुछ लेना देना है, कुछ वो अकाउंट फॉर नहीं कर रहे इसके बारे में. That it imposes on consumers of river water or on fishermen while making its production decision. वो कंसिडर नहीं कर रहा है. Additionally, these external costs are never reflected in the price of the product. क्योंकि प्राइस पे उस पर सीधा कुछ असर नहीं, तो वो इनकॉर्पोरेट नहीं हो रहा है प्राइस में. Similarly, a positive production externalities initiated in production that confers external benefit on others may be received in production or in consumption. So we have a firm which offers training to its employees for increasing their skill generates positive benefit on other firms when they hire such workers as they change their jobs. मतलब वो जब दूसरी जगह जाएगा तो उनका भी भला होगा. A positive production externalities is received in consumption when an individual raises an attractive garden and the person walking by enjoys the garden. These externalities effect were not in fact taken into account when the production decisions were made. फिर है consumption externalities. Negative consumption externalities initiated in consumption which produce external cost on others may be received in consumption or in production. So, smoking cigarettes in public places causing passive smoking by others creates litter and diminishing the aesthetic value of the room, and playing the radio loudly obstructing one from enjoying a concert are examples of negative consumption externalities affecting consumption. The act of undisciplined students talking and creating disturbance in a class, preventing teachers from making effective instruction and the case of excessive consumption of alcohol causing impairment in efficiency of work and production are instances of negative consumption externalities affecting production. Then a positive consumption externalities initiated in consumption that confers external benefit on others may be received in consumption or in production. So if people gets immunized against contagious diseases, they would confer a social benefit to others as well as preventing others from getting infected. Similarly, consumption of the services of a health club by the employees of a firm will result into a external benefit to the firm in the form of increased efficiency and production. हेल्थ कार्ड से उनका क्या फ़ायदा, तो एम्प्लॉय बीमार नहीं गिरेंगे या फिर एम्प्लॉय को कॉस्ट कम लगेगा, उससे एम्प्लॉय की एफिशिएंसी और प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ेगी. सो इनडायरेक्ट बेनिफिट. When there are externalities and the cost or benefit are experienced by people outside the transaction, the actor in the transaction, consumer or producer, tends to ignore those external cost or benefit. Having discussed the nature of externalities in production and consumption, we shall now examine how externalities cause inefficiency and market failure. So before we attempt this, we need to understand the difference between private cost and social cost. Private cost is the cost of money cost of production incurred by the firm. Cost includes wages, raw material, heating and lighting, which must be paid to carry out production. जो production carry करने के लिए ज़रूरी है. And these would appear in firm's account. The supply curve here corresponds only to private margin cost. Then we have social cost. It refers to total cost to the society on account of production or consumption. Social costs are private costs borne by individuals directly involved in a transaction together with external cost borne by third parties not directly involved in the transaction. मतलब external cost भी involved होता है. In other words, social costs are the total cost incurred by the society when a good is consumed or produced. It is thus private cost plus cost to third party, that is private cost plus total negative externalities. तो ये उसका शॉर्ट फॉर्मूला है. Social cost equals to private cost plus external cost. The external costs are not included in firm's income statement or consumer's decision. However, these external costs are real and important as far as the society is concerned. As we have mentioned above, firms do not have to pay for the damage resulting from the pollution which they generate. So, as a result, each firm's cost which is considered for determining output would only be a private cost or direct cost of production which does not incorporate externalities जो मैंने पहले भी बोला है. So, the market prices determined without incorporating externalities are not idle as they do not reflect all social costs and benefits. So, such prices sends incorrect signals to producers and consumers and cause either overproduction or underproduction. Thus, we conclude that when there is externalities, a competitive market will produce a level of output which is not socially optimal. This is a clear case of market failure. So, ये market failure के वजह से है. Then we have public goods. Paul A. Samuelson, who introduced the concept of collective consumption goods in his path-breaking 1954 paper, The Pure Theory of Public Expenditure, is usually recognized as the first economist to develop the theory of public goods. So mark this. ये पेपर का नाम भी एमसीक्यू में आ सकता है. A public good, also referred to as collective consumption good or social good, is defined as one which all enjoy in a common, in a sense that each individual's consumption of such good leads to a subtraction from any other individual's consumption of that good. Most of the goods produced and consumed in an economy are private goods. Since they are scarce, anyone who wants to consume them must purchase them at a price. Private goods do not face any have free rider problem. That is, private goods are excludable. That is, it is possible to exclude or prevent consumers who have not paid for them from consuming them or having access to them. उनको रोक सकते हैं. So consumption of private goods is rivalrous. That is, the purchase and consumption of a private good by one individual prevents another individual from consuming it. So एक ने लिया तो दूसरे को नहीं मिलेगा ऐसा सिंपली बोले तो. Normally the market will efficiently allocate resources for the production of private goods. A few examples are food items, clothing, movie ticket, television, cars, houses. मैं और एक ऐड करूँगा concert tickets. So public goods are products, that is goods or service, whose consumption is essentially collective in nature. That is, public goods is a non-rival in consumption. It means that consumption of a public good by one individual does not reduce the quantity or quality. मतलब सभी के लिए अवेलेबल है. प्राइवेट में सिर्फ एक ने यूज़ किया तो दूसरा यूज़ या कंज्यूम नहीं कर सकता है. पब्लिक के केस में वैसा नहीं है. एक अच्छे से मार्क करता हूँ उसको. Does not reduce the quality or quantity available to all other individuals. For example, if you ate an apple, a private good, another person cannot too eat it. But if you walk in a street light, other person too can walk without any reduced benefit from the street light. So, public goods are non-excludable. That is, consumers cannot, at least at less than prohibitive cost, be excluded from consumption benefit. If the good is provided, one individual cannot deny another individual's consumption. For example, national defense once provided, it is impossible to exclude anyone within the country from consuming or benefiting from it. मतलब हम सिलेक्टिव लोगों को ही भला बेनिफिट देंगे ऐसा नहीं होगा. Public goods are characterized by indivisibility. That is, each individual may consume all of the goods. That is, the total amount consumed is the same for each individual. Each individual. So, once a public good is provided, the additional resource cost of another person consuming the goods is zero. No direct payment by the consumer is involved in the case of pure public goods. A few examples of public goods are national defense, highways, public education, scientific research which benefits everyone, law enforcement, lighthouse, fire protection, disease prevention and public sanitation. सो सब जो भी पब्लिक वेलफेयर के लिए सब गुड्स अवेलेबल है उसकी बात हो रही है. देन वी हैव public goods are generally more vulnerable to issues such as externalities, inadequate property rights, and free rider problems. That is, the absence of excludability in the case of public goods and the tendency of public to act in their own self-interest will lead to the problem of free riding. That is, there is no incentive for public to pay for the goods. कुछ उनको incentive नहीं पैसा भरने का, because they cannot consume it without paying it. Sorry, without they can consume it, उनको बिना पैसे भरे भी वो consume कर सकते हैं. Since private goods are excludable, free riding mostly occurs in the case of public goods. Free riding मतलब बिना पैसे भरे यूज़ करना है. If individual make no offer to pay for public goods, there is market failure in the case of these goods, and the profit maximizing firms will not produce them. Since there is no मतलब incentive ही नहीं है तो वो produce नहीं करेंगे. Producers are not motivated to produce a socially optimal amount of products if they cannot charge a positive price for them or make profit from them. As such, though public goods are extremely valuable for the well-being of the society, left to the market, they will not be produced at all or will be grossly underproduced. Thus, there is market failure in the case of public goods. Incomplete information. So, complete information is an important element of a competitive market. Perfect information implies both buyer and sellers have complete information about anything that may influence their decision making. However, this assumption is not fully satisfied in real markets because of complexity of products and goods services, that is cardinal surgery, financial products like mutual funds, then difficulty of getting correct information and deliberate misinformation by interested parties. Example, highly persuasive advertisement, information failures result in market failures. Asymmetric information. Asymmetric information occurs when there is an imbalance in information between the buyer and the seller. That is, when the buyer knows more than seller, buyer को ज़्यादा पता है seller, or the seller knows more than buyer. These can distort choices because the landlord knows more about their properties than the tenants. A borrower knows more about their ability to repay a loan than the lender. A used car seller knows more about the vehicle quality than the buyer. A health insurance buyer knows more about their state of health than the insurance companies, and some trader may possess insider information in financial market. इसके बारे में कुछ पता होगा तो ज़रूर कमेंट करना. कुछ एग्जांपल. These are situations in which one party to a transaction knows a material fact that the other party does not. This phenomena is an important source of market failure. Adverse selection and moral hazard are the two central concepts related to problem of information gaps in many markets. Adverse selection. Asymmetric information generates adverse selection and affects a transaction before it occurs. When one party to a contract or negotiation, say X, possesses information relevant to the contract or negotiation that the other party Y does not have, the expected value of the transaction is known more accurately to X due to asymmetric of information. Then the party which has more information, example Y, may take advantage Y's ignorance, and this could potentially put the ignorant party Y at loss. For example, in the insurance market, if the health insurance companies could costlessly identify the health risk of buyers, and there is no asymmetric information, and therefore insurer could offer low premium to the low risk buyer and high premium to the high risk buyers. As a matter of fact, compared to insurance buyers, insurance companies know less about the health conditions of the buyer, and therefore are unable to differentiate between high risk and low risk persons. Due to the tendency of people with high risk to obtain insurance coverage to greater extent that person with lesser risk, the proportion of unhealthy people in the pool of insurance people increases. In such situation, a insurance company extends insurance coverage to an applicant whose actual risk is substantially high than the risk known by the insurance company. By not revealing the actual state of health, an applicant is leading the insurance company to make decision on coverage or premium costs that are adverse to the insurance company management of financial मतलब insurance company का नुकसान हो रहा है. Due to heavy insurance claims, the premium of insurance rises so that the more healthy people being aware of their low risk choices not to be insured. This further increases the proportion of unhealthy people among the insured, thus raising the price of insurance upwards. The process continues until most people who want to buy the insurance are unhealthy. Having more unhealthy insurance buyers make insurance very expensive. Cost बढ़ती जाता है उसका. In the extreme cases, the insurance companies stop selling the insurance, leading to missing markets. If the seller wishes to do business profitably, they may have to incur considerable cost in terms of time and money for identifying the extent of risk for different buyers, which in turn would increase insurance premium. When dealing with problems of asymmetric information, the most frequently cited and studied example in economics is the Lehman's problem, developed by George Akerlof in relation to the used car market. So, second-hand cars may be good quality cars or poor quality cars defined as Lehman's. The owner of the car know how more about the much more about its quality than anyone else. While placing it for sale, he may not disclose all that he knows about the mechanical defects of the vehicle. Based on the probability that the car on sale is a lemon, the buyer's willingness to pay for any particular car will be based on the average quality of used cars. Since there is quality uncertainty to account for this risk, the price offered for any used car is likely to be less. Since the price offered in the market is lower than the accepted one, sellers of good quality cars will not be inclined to place the car for sale in the used car market. They are kept by their owners or sold only to relative or friends. The good quality cars disappears from the market and the market becomes flooded with lemons. That is the जो जिसमें कुछ टेक्निकल इश्यूज है कार्स में, एंड इवेंचुअली द मार्केट में ऑफर नथिंग बट लेमन्स. दिस इज द केस ऑफ मार्केट फेलियर. आपको नहीं दिख रहा होगा. दिस इज द केस ऑफ मार्केट फेलियर बिकॉज द मार्केट हैज ओनली लोअर प्राइस and lower average quality of cars. With asymmetric information, just as low quality high risk buyers drive out high quality low risk buyers of information insurance, low quality cars can drive high quality cars out of market. Thus asymmetric information leads to elimination of high quality goods from the market. Economic agents end up either selecting a substandard product जिसका क्वालिटी थोड़ा लोअर है और लीविंग द मार्केट, सीधे सीधा मार्केट ही छोड़ देते हैं. Then we have moral hazard. So moral hazard arises wherever there is a externalities, that is wherever an economic agent can shift some of its cost to others. It is about action made after making a market exchange which may have adverse impact on the less informed person. In other words, it is about opportunity characterized by an informed person taking advantage of a less informed person through an unobserved action. It arises from lack of information about someone's future behavior. It occurs when one party to agreement knows that he need not bear the consequences of his bad behavior or poor decision making, and the consequences, if any, would be borne by the other party. Therefore, he engages in a risky behavior or fails to act in good faith or act in a different way than he would have to act those consequences by himself. बियर मतलब उसके ऊपर कुछ आया तो वो कैसा एक्ट करेगा, उसका एग्जैक्टली ऑपोजिट एक्ट कर रहा है. So in the insurance market, moral hazard refers to a situation that increases the probability of occurrence of a loss or larger than normal loss because of a change in insurance policy holders behavior after buying the policy. So for example, a driver who has a comprehensive insurance tends to be less careful while driving and may increase the probability of insurance claims. When someone is protected from paying the full cost of for their harmful actions, they tend to act irresponsibly, making the harmful consequences more likely. In the case of medical insurance, the more one's costs are covered by the insurance company, the less he cares whether the doctor charges excessive fees or uses inefficient and costly procedures as a part of his health care. क्योंकि उसको पता है कि उसका जो भी क्लेम होगा, जो भी उसका एक्सपेंसेस होंगे वो क्लेम में कवर हो जाएंगे, इसलिए वो बेफिक्र रहता है. This causes insurance premiums to rise for everyone, driving more potential consumers out of the market. उसके वजह से इंश्योरेंस कंपनी को समझ जाता है कि क्लेम्स हो रहे हैं, अमाउंट बढ़ रहा है, उनका बर्डन बढ़ रहा है, तो इनडायरेक्टली वो इंश्योरेंस प्रीमियम भी बढ़ाते हैं और जो कॉस्ट उनको ज़्यादा लगी है वो आगे फ्यूचर में प्रीमियम बढ़ा बढ़ा के रिकवर करते हैं. इससे कुछ लोग आउट ऑफ द मार्केट चले जाते हैं. If the company could costlessly monitor the behavior of the insured, it can charge higher fees for those who make more claims. The problem lies in the fact that insurance company cannot observe people's action post sale and therefore cannot judge without costly monitoring whether occurrence of accident is genuine or a outcome of lack of caution. मतलब सही में एक्सीडेंट हुआ है या उन्होंने ध्यान नहीं दिया इसलिए एक्सीडेंट हुआ है on the part of the insured. Therefore, the expected outflow in terms of insurance claim is higher and the insurance company may be forced to increase premium for everyone or may at time refuses to sell insurance at all, in which case it is missing market. So having detailed market failure in detail, we shall now look into the intervention mechanisms which government adopt for combating market failures so as to ensure greater welfare to the society. The existence of a free market does not altogether eliminate the need of government intervention for the efficient functioning of markets. Government can ensure economic efficiency by providing the necessary legal and regulatory system that facilitates efficiency and or is can intervene to correct specific market failures. The role of the government is discussed below. So what government plays a role we are discussing here. Government plays a vital role in ensure a well functioning market by first creating the necessary physical infrastructure such as roads, bridges, airports and waterways, provision of institutional infrastructure such as legal and regulatory framework, establishment of the rule of law, protection of property rights, ensuring performance of contracts and ensuring an appropriate framed competition and consumer law framework that regulates the activities of the firms and the individuals in their market exchange. So, we shall try to have a discussion on the forms of government intervention to address market failures. Government intervention to minimize market power. Because of the social cost imposed by monopoly, governments intervene by establishing rules and regulations designed to promote competition and prohibit actions that are likely to restrain competition. These legislation differ from country to country. For example, in India, we have the Competition Act 2002 as amended by the Competition Amendment Act 2007 to promote and sustain competition in markets. The antitrust laws in the US and the Competition Act 1998 of UK etc. are designed to promote competitive economy by prohibiting actions that are likely to restrain competition. Such legislation generally aim at prohibiting contracts, combinations and collusions among producers or traders which are in restraint of the trade and other anti-competitive actions such as predatory pricing. Other measures include first, market liberalization by introducing competition in previously monopolistic sector such as energy, telecom, etc. Controls on mergers and acquisitions if there is possible market domination. यानी अगर दो कंपनी साथ में आके दो बड़े प्लेयर्स साथ में आके मर्ज हो रहे हैं जिससे वो पूरा मार्केट एक साथ रूल करेंगे तो गवर्नमेंट और कंपटीशन एक्ट जो है वो उसको रोक सकता है. इसलिए आप नॉर्मली देखेंगे जो भी मर्जर्स एक्विजिशन हो रहे हैं तो उसको कंपटीशन एक्ट का परमिशन या रिक्वेस्ट लेना पड़ता है कि हम ऐसा कर रहे हैं, इन्फॉर्म करना पड़ता है. अगर उन्होंने अप्रूवल दिया है तभी वो मर्जर या एक्विजिशन होता है, नहीं तो फिर नॉर्मल कंज्यूमर का नुकसान है उसमें. देन वी हैव प्राइस कैपिंग एंड प्राइस रेगुलेशंस, प्रॉफिट ऑन रेट ऑफ रिटर्न रेगुलेशंस, पैटर्नेज टू कंज्यूमर एसोसिएशन, टफ इन्वेस्टिगेशन इनटू कार्टेलाइजेशंस एंड अनफेयर प्रैक्टिसेस सच एज collusion and predatory pricing. collusion मतलब साथ में आना. Restrictions on monopoly power of firms, reduction in import control and nationalization. However, sometimes we find that government protect monopoly position of firms that have developed unique innovations. For example, patent and copyright law grant exclusive rights of products or processes to provide incentive for invention and innovation. Another example is that of permitted natural monopoly. Natural monopolies can produce the entire output of the market at a cost that is lower than what it would be if there were several firms. Example of such natural monopoly are electricity, gas, and water supplies. In order to control the market power of such natural monopolies, government usually regulate the prices of the goods and services provided by them. तो गवर्नमेंट का प्राइस पे कंट्रोल रहता है नॉर्मल केस में. गवर्नमेंट इंटरवेंशन टू करेक्ट एक्सटर्नलिटीज. एज यू मे इजीली रिकॉल, फ्रीली functioning market produces externalities because producers and consumers need to consider only their private cost and benefits and not the full social cost. To promote the overall welfare of the members of the society, social returns should be maximized and social costs should be minimized. This implies that the cost and benefit, both private and external, needs to be internalized by consumers and producers while making buying and production decision. And externalities is internalized if the one that generates the externalities incorporate into their private or internal cost benefit calculations the external benefits in the case of positive externalities and external cost in the case of negative externalities that third party bear. In other words, the key to internalize an externality, both internal cost and external cost and benefit, is to ensure that those who create the externalities include them while making decisions. Governments have numerous methods to reduce the effect of negative externalities and to promote positive externalities. We shall first examine how government regulation can deal with the inefficiencies that arise from negative externalities. Since the most common referred negative externalities is pollution, we shall first take it as an example in the following discussion. Government initiatives towards negative externalities may be classified as first, direct control or regulations that openly regulate the actions of those involved in generating negative externalities, and market based policies that would provide economic incentives. Direct controls, also known as command solutions, prohibit specific activities that explicitly create negative externalities or require that the negative externalities be limited to a certain level. A few examples are: first, the government may, through legislation, fix emission standard, which is the legal limit on how much pollutant firm can emit, means how much CO2 can emit or other gases can emit. If the firm exceeds the limit, it can invite monetary penalties or criminal liabilities. Second, licensing, production quotas, and mandate regarding acceptable production processes are other examples of direct intervention by government. Then, production, use, and sale of many commodities and services are prohibited in our country. Then we have smoking is completely banned in many public areas. Stringent rules are in place in respect of tobacco, advertising, packaging, and labeling. Government may pass laws to alleviate the effect of negative externalities. Government stability environmental standards are rules that protect the environment by specifying actions by producers and consumers. For example, India has enacted the Environment Protection Act 1986. Government may limit the amount of certain pollutants released into the water and air by individual firms or make it mandatory to use pollution control device. Government may insist that the polluting firms install pollution abatement mechanisms to ensure adhere to the emission standard. This means additional expenditure to the firm leading to rise in the firm's average cost. New firms will find it profitable to enter the industry only if the price of the product is greater than the average cost of production plus abatement expenditure. Governments may also form specific bodies or boards to specifically address the problem. For instance, the Ministry of Environment and Forest, the Pollution Control Board of India, and the State Pollution Control Boards. The market based approach, that is, environmental taxes and cap and trade, operates through price mechanism to create an incentive for change. In other words, government tries to alter the price of goods through taxes and subsidies and thus change the behavior of the market participant. This is achieved by setting the price डायरेक्टली थ्रू पोल्यूशन टैक्स, मतलब कुछ टैक्स लगा दे एडिशनल प्राइस के साथ, वो इनडायरेक्टली जो भी एक्सटर्नलिटीज है उसको इनकॉर्पोरेट करते हैं. मान लो से कुछ गुड्स है, उसका प्राइस है प्रॉफिट सब पकड़ के सेलिंग प्राइस है 100 रुपीज़ बिफोर पोल्यूशन टैक्स. तो गवर्नमेंट बोलता है कि आपने पोल्यूशन किया है, उसके हिसाब से 20 रुपीज़ हम एडिशनल आप पोल्यूशन टैक्स उस पर लेवी करेंगे, तो 120 रुपीज़ उसका सेलिंग प्राइस होगा. तो ये जो 20 रुपीज़ है ये इनडायरेक्टली एक्सटर्नलिटीज़ को कवर करता है. दिस इज जस्ट एग्जांपल. ठीक है. देन सेटिंग द प्राइस थ्रू indirectly through the establishment of the cap and trade system. So one method of ensuring internalization of negative externalities is imposing pollution tax, जो अभी बताया. These taxes are named Pigeon taxes after AC Peugeot. Maybe मैं स्पेल कुछ गलत कर रहा हूँ. The size of the tax depends on the amount of the pollution of firms produce. These taxes have the effect of making the polluters pay. मतलब जो pollution कर रहा है उसको ही भरना है. Tax increases the private cost of production or consumption, as the case may be, and would decrease the quantity demanded, and therefore the output of the goods will create a negative externalities. However, there are problems in administrating an efficient pollution tax. Pollution taxes are difficult to determine and administer because it involves the use of complex and costly administrative procedures for मॉनिटरिंग द पोल्यूटर्स. उतना उनको ध्यान रखने के लिए जो भी एडमिन कॉस्ट है वो बहुत ज़्यादा है, क्योंकि हर एक आपको इंडस्ट्री का ट्रैक करना है, आप कितना पोल्यूशन किया है क्या है, तो उसमें बहुत टाइम एंड मनी इन्वॉल्व है. इफ द डिमांड ऑफ द गुड इज इनइलास्टिक, द टैक्स में हैव ओनली इनसिग्निफिकेंट इफेक्ट इन रिड्यूसिंग द डिमांड. मतलब इनइलास्टिक डिमांड है उस पर तो ज़्यादा डिमांड पर असर नहीं होगा, जो मेन मोटिव था टैक्स का. In such cases, the producers will be able to easily shift the tax burden in the form of higher प्रोडक्ट प्राइजेस इनडायरेक्टली वो सिंस डिमांड पे कुछ असर नहीं तो जो भी टैक्स का पार्ट है वो कंज्यूमर से रिकवर करेंगे. Pollution taxes also have potential negative consequences on employment and investment because higher pollution taxes in one country may encourage producers to shift their production facilities to those countries with lower taxes. ये भी हो सकता है सीधा फैक्ट्री शिफ्ट करते हैं दूसरे कंट्रीज में जहाँ पर टैक्सेशन कम है या फिर जहाँ पे कंपनीज का ज़्यादा फायदा है. The second approach to establishing prices indirectly is tradable emission permits. You might have heard carbon credits. ये बहुत पॉपुलर है यूएस में आप देखेंगे. कार्बन क्रेडिट सिंपली बोले तो कुछ आपको पॉइंट्स मिले जाते हैं हर आपके फैक्ट्री के हिसाब से या फिर आपके मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेटअप के हिसाब से आपको 100 पॉइंट्स मिले हैं. तो आप मान लो आपने पोल्यूशन किया, पोल्यूशन का कुछ कैलकुलेशन होता है इससे आपके पास आपने पूरे साल में जितना प्रोडक्शन किया उसके हिसाब से आपके 80 क्रेडिट्स यूटिलाइज हुए तो जो बैलेंस है ये आप कैरी फॉरवर्ड करा सकते हैं या आप मार्केट में सेल कर सकते हैं दूसरे कंपनीज के पास से. मतलब आप टेस्ला का जब बैलेंस शीट देखेंगे तो टेस्ला का वन ऑफ द सोर्स ऑफ इनकम है कि वो कार्बन क्रेडिट बेच के उसको कुछ पैसा मिलता है सिंस वो ईवी कार्स मैन्युफैक्चर करता है तो उसका कार्बन क्रेडिट जो है यूटिलाइज नहीं होता है तो वो ट्रेड करता है उसमें. The use of tradable permits to limit the is also called as cap and trade. A tradable permit is a license that allows a company to release a unit of pollution into the environment over some period of time. जो मैंने अभी बताया. By issuing a fixed number of permits, the government determine the total level of pollution that can be legally permitted during each period. वो cap दिया हुआ है highest कितना हो सकता है. Each firm has permits specifying the number of units of emissions that the firm is allowed to generate. A firm that generates emission over what is allowed by the permit is penalized with substantial fine. उसको कुछ फाइन्स भी लगता है और मे भी उसका लिमिट 100 है पर उसको 120 यूटिलाइज हो रहा है तो वो किसी और से क्रेडिट बाय भी कर सकता है. द फर्म्स कैन सेल यही बोल रहा हूँ द गवर्नमेंट इशूड पे टू अदर फर्म्स इन ऑर्गेनाइज मार्केट. इसका देख लेना टेस्ला बैलेंस शीट याद से देखना आपको समझेगा क्या बोल रहा हूँ मैं. Since the permits are tradable, that is, the firm can sell for a price, the polluting firm faces a opportunity cost. That is, for each unit of pollution that it creates, it must either buy a permit or it must forego the revenue it could earn by selling the permit to other firms. मतलब अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट. मान लो अगर वो खुद यूटिलाइज नहीं करता तो किसी और को बेचता है तो उसको क्या फ़ायदा रहता है उसको हम अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट बोलेंगे. अपॉर्चुनिटी जो उसने फॉरगॉन किया है. A firm which produces less pollution can sell their permits and earn money. A firm whose technology would make it very costly to reduce pollution generally buys permit in the market. At the same time, a firm whose technology enables it to discharge less pollution or can reduce pollution rather cheaply will sell the permit. The higher polluter will have to buy more permits, which increases their cost and makes them less competitive and less profitable. The lower polluter receives extra revenue from selling their surplus permits, which makes them more competitive and more profitable. सीधी बात है आपको आपने क्रेडिट बेचा तो आपका सीधा सीधा आपका रेवेन्यू एक एडिशनल रेवेन्यू जनरेट हो रहा है उससे आपका प्रॉफिट्स भी दिखेंगे ज़्यादा. देयरफॉर फर्म्स विल हैव इंसेंटिव टू नॉट टू प्रोड्यूस. तो एक फर्म को भी एक इंसेंटिव मिलेगा कि हमने लेस पोल्यूशन करेंगे तो हमारा क्रेडिट जो है हम सेल करके और इनकम जनरेट कर सकते हैं. So tradable permits have been used since the early 1980s to reduce several types of pollution in the US. In 1994, the United States began a cap and trade system for sulfur dioxide emissions that causes acid rain by issuing permits to power plants based on their historic consumption of coal. India does not have an explicit carbon price और मार्केट बेस्ड मैकेनिज्म सच एज कैप एंड ट्रेड अभी इंडिया में डेवलप हो रहा है बट इंडिया हैज़ मेनी स्कीम्स एंड मैकेनिज्म्स दैट पुट एन इम्प्लिसिट प्राइस ऑन कार्बन. फॉर एग्जांपल द परफॉर्म अचीव एंड ट्रेड पैट स्कीम कार्बन ट्रेड टैक्स इन द फॉर्म ऑफ सेस ऑन कोल lignite and peat renewable purchase obligation RPO and renewable energy certificate REC, internal carbon pricing ICP, etc. In 2017, the coal cess was abolished and replaced by the GST compensation cess since it failed to achieve the desired outcome. The Energy Conservation Amendment Bill 2022 empowers the central government to specify a carbon credit trading system and to stipulate energy consumption standards. सो अभी इंडिया में अभी इतना ज़्यादा पॉपुलर नहीं है, पर आराम आराम से आपको इंडिया में भी देखने को मिलेगा. The cap and trade method is administratively cheap and simple to implement and ensures that pollution is minimized in the most cost effective way. The cap puts a clear upper limit, cap मतलब upper limit, on the quantity of pollution that may be generated in each period. However, firms with a relatively inelastic demand for its product can easily shift the extra cost incurred for procuring additional permits in the form of higher prices. Price बढ़ा के वो recover करते. The two interventions mentioned above, that is permit and taxes, make use of market forces to encourage consumers and producers to take externalities into account when planning their consumption and production. In other words, the polluters are forced to consider pollution as a private cost. ठीक से अंडरलाइन करता हूँ. So far we have been discussing about negative externalities. We shall now look into positive externalities. Though positive externality is associated with external benefits, we can still call it a market failure because left to market there will be a less than optimal output. Since optimal output से कम प्रोड्यूस होगा इसलिए उसको मार्केट फेलियर में क्लासीफाई कर रहे हैं. Since positive externalities promote welfare, government implement policies that promote positive externalities. When positive externalities are present, government may attempt to solve the problems through. वो कैसे सॉल्व करते हैं? First, corrective subsidies to the producers aimed at increasing the supply of goods. मतलब production link incentives. Corrective subsidies to consumers aimed at increasing demand for the goods. ये भी मिलता है हमको, कुछ हम परचेस कर रहे हैं उसके बेसिस पे. ऐसे सोलर बेस्ड था, सोलर मैं अच्छे से लिख नहीं पा रहा हूँ, ठीक है. As we are aware, a corrective production subsidy involves government paying part of the cost to the firms in order to promote the production of goods having positive externalities. This is in fact a market-based policy as subsidies to producers would lower their cost of production. Subsidies मिलेंगे तो cost of production कम होगा, इसलिए वो win-win रहेगा. Example, fertilizer subsidy. A subsidy on fee for education is an example of consumption subsidy. In the case of products and services whose externalities are vastly positive, the government enters the market directly as an entrepreneur to produce and provide them. Public education, healthcare, fundamental research are the obvious example. Government also engage in direct production of environmental quality. Examples are afforestation, reforestation, protection of water bodies, treatment of sewage, and cleaning of toxic water sites. Government intervention in the case of merit goods. Merit goods are goods that have substantial positive externalities and hence they are socially desirable. Merit goods can be provided through the market, but are likely to be underproduced and underconsumed through the market mechanism, so that social welfare will not be maximized. Examples of merit goods includes education, healthcare, welfare service, housing, fire protection, waste management, public libraries, museums, public parks, etc. The possible government response to underprovision of merit goods are regulations, subsidies, direct government provision, and a combination of government provisions and market provisions. Regulations determine how a private activity can be conducted. For example, the way in which education is to be imparted is government regulated. Governments can prohibit some types of goods and activities, set standards, and issue mandate, making other obliged. For example, government may make it compulsory to avail insurance protection. compulsory ammunition may be insisted upon, as it will help not only the individual but as a society at large. Government could also use legislation to enforce the consumption of a good which generates positive externalities. Example: use of helmet, seat belts, etc. An additional option is to compel individuals to consume the goods or services that generates the external benefits. The Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, which mandates free and compulsory education for every child of the age of 6 to 14 is years is another example. If suspected of having a contagious disease such as COVID, an individual may be forced to get medical treatment. Compulsion mandatory. ध्यान में रखो. The ultimate encouragement to consume is to make the goods completely free at the point of consumption. For example, freely available hospital treatment for various diseases. When merit goods are directly provided free of cost by government, there might be substantial demand for the same. Substantial. Then we have government intervention in the case of demerit goods. Demerit goods are the goods which are believed to be socially undesirable. Demerit. Examples of demerit goods are cigarettes, alcohol, intoxicating drugs, etc. The consumption of demerit goods imposes significant negative externalities on the society as a whole. However, it should be kept in mind that all goods with negative externalities are not essentially demerit goods. Example: production of steel causes pollution, but steel is a socially undesirable good. The production and consumption of demerit goods are likely to be more than optimal under free market. The government should therefore intervene in the market to discourage their production and consumption. How do governments correct market failures resulting from demerit goods? कैसे करते हैं? तो first, at the extreme, the government may enforce complete ban on the demerit good. Example: the possession, trading, or consumption of intoxicating drugs is made illegal. Fear through persuasion, which is mainly intended to be achieved by negative advertising campaigns, which emphasize the danger associated with consumption of demerit goods. सिगरेट वाला ऐड मूवी के स्टार्ट में, tobacco वाला ऐड. Through legislations that prohibit advertising or promoting of demerit goods in whatsoever manner. Strict regulations of the market for the good may be put in place so as to limit access to the good, especially by vulnerable goods such as children and adolescents. Regulatory controls in the form of spectacle restrictions. Example: smoking in public places, sale of tobacco to be away from schools, and time restriction under which sale is particular times during the day is banned. Imposing unusual high taxes on producing and purchasing of goods, making them very costly, very both huge taxes है, and unaffordable to many is perhaps the most common used method for reducing the consumption of a demerit good. Refer the GST rate in India for demerit goods. You will find how high they are. देख के ज़रूर कमेंट करना. GST rate for tobacco, alcohol. क्या थोड़ा इशू आ रहा है, लिखते नहीं आ रहा है अच्छे से. ठीक है, टोबैको को तो देखने का. The government can fix a minimum price below which the demerit good should not be exchanged. The demand for demerit goods such as cigarettes and alcohol is often highly inelastic. Inelastic मतलब कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. So that any increase in their price resulting from additional taxation can causes a less than proportionate decrease in demand. इतना ज़्यादा डिमांड नहीं, थोड़ा कुछ slightly effect होता है. Also, sellers can shift the taxes to the consumer without losing their customers. क्योंकि since addictive goods है, जो भी हाई टैक्स बढ़ रहा है तो उसका वो पास ऑन करते कंज्यूमर से रिकवर करा के लेते हैं. The effect of stringent regulations such as total ban is seldom realized in the form of complete elimination of the demerit goods. Conversely, such goods are secretly driven underground and traded in hidden market. फिर है government intervention in the case of public goods. Direct provisions of a public good by government can help overcome the free rider problem which leads to market failure. The most important public goods like defense, establishment and maintenance of legal system, fire protection, disease prevention are inevitably provided by government. Excludable public goods such as parks, universities, museums, etc. can be provided by government and the same can be financed through an entry fee. Government may grant licenses to private firms to build a public good facility and charge fee from the user. In such cases, the government regulates the level of entry fee charged from the public and keeps strict watch on the functioning of the licensee to guarantee equitable distribution of welfare. सबको बराबर वेलफेयर मतलब सर्विसेज अवेल कर सकते हैं. Some public goods are provided by voluntary contribution and private donations by corporate entities and non-government organizations. Some goods are produced and consumed as public goods and service despite the fact that they can be produced or consumed as private goods. This is because left to the market and profit motive, these may provide dangers to the society. Examples are scientific approval of drugs, production of strategic products such as atomic energy, provision of security at airport, etc. Intervention, non-market pricing. Price intervention generally takes the form of price controls, which are legal restriction on price. Price controls may take the form of either a price floor, that is a minimum price buyers are required to pay, or a price ceiling, that is a maximum price sellers are allowed to charge for a goods or service. Fixing of minimum wages, rent controls are example of such market intervention. Government usually intervenes in many primary market which are subject to extreme as well as unpredictable fluctuation in price. For example, in India, in case of many crops, the government has initiated a minimum support price (MSP) program as well as procurement by government agencies at the set support price. The objective is to guarantee steady and assured income to farmers. When prices of certain essential commodities rise excessively, government may restore to control in the form of price ceilings, also called as maximum price, for making a resource or commodity available to all at reasonable price. For example, maximum price of food grain and essential items are set by government during the times of scarcity. जब शॉर्टेज है कुछ प्रोडक्ट का कमोडिटी का तब गवर्नमेंट इंटरवेन करके प्राइस उसको स्टेबलाइज कराता है with the objective of ensuring stability in price and distribution. Government often intervene in grain markets by building and maintaining of buffer stocks. कुछ stock government खुद maintain करता है. It involves purchase from the market during the good harvest and releasing stock during period when production is below average. Government intervention for correcting information failure. Government actively intervene in the market for combating the problem of market failure due to information problems and considering the importance of information in making rational choices. A few examples are government makes it mandatory to have accurate labeling and content disclosure by producers. Example, labeling on cigarette packets, display of nutritional information on food packages. Mandatory disclosure of information. For example, SEBI, that is Security Exchange Board of India, requires that accurate information be provided to prospective buyers of new stock. Public disseminations of information to improve knowledge. Regulations of advertising and setting of advertising standards to make advertising more responsible, informative, and less persuasive. Government interventions for equitable distribution. One of the most important activity of the government is to redistribute income so as that there is equity and fairness in the society. Some common policy intervention includes progressive income tax, target budgetary allocation, unemployment compensation, transfer payments, subsidies, social security schemes, government job reservations, land reforms, gender sensitive budgeting, etc. Government also intervenes to combat black economy and market distortions associated with the parallel black economy. Government intervention in the market that reduces efficiency while increasing equity is often justified because equity is greatly appreciated by the society. The discussion above is so far being comprehensive, yet it points towards the numerous ways in which government intervention in the market. However, we cannot be sure whether the government interventions would be effective or it would have been make the functioning of the economy less efficient. Government failures where government intervention in the economy to correct a market failure creates inefficiency and leads to a misallocation of scarce resources often occur very often. Government failure occurs when intervention is ineffective, causing wastage of resources expended for the intervention, or intervention produces fresh and more serious problems. There are costs and benefits associated with any government intervention in the market, and it is important that policymakers consider all the costs and benefits of policy intervention. So that's it in the video. Keep watching our channel and do share your feedback and thoughts in the comment below. Bye bye.